the mentally ill, then the biggest hazard of mentally ill is the prison system in America. Is that the same for the UK?
No, I think there are more people in psychiatric hospitals who are severely mentally ill. I suppose it depends how you define mentally ill.
Yeah.
Like around half of prisoners have some sort of mental illness, but that would be, the majority of those would be anxiety or depression. So I'm not trying to detract from those mental illnesses, but I'm talking about, need hospital, kind of that level of illness.
Yeah.
There are more in psychiatric hospitals, definitely.
So let's just take a break from all of the cases a second, just go over some of the terminology.
Sure.
I think people need a break after hearing all those stories. So you meant earlier on, you said paranoid schizophrenic. Mm-hmm. What is a paranoid schizophrenic?
So schizophrenia is a mental illness that affects about 1% of the population. I think it's very slightly overrepresented in males, just by a little bit. And it's periods of psychosis. So psychosis is where you step out of reality. The two most common symptoms of psychosis are hallucinations and delusions. So hallucinations are seeing or hearing things that don't exist. Contrary to popular belief, most people with schizophrenia hear voices. It's actually quite rare for them to have visual hallucinations.
They mostly hear voices.
Yeah. So hearing things is far more common than seeing things, despite what you might see on TV programs, etc. Which, by the way, is a way that you can spot when a defendant's lying, but that's a different topic. And they suffer delusions. So delusions are false, fixed beliefs that will not change, even if there's evidence to the contrary. So typical delusions are paranoid delusions, which is exactly what you get in paranoid schizophrenia. So of cases that I see, by far the common types tend to be people are watching me, people are following me, either people that the defendant knows or that are complete random strangers. People want to kill me. People are poisoning my food. I've seen several prisoners who will only eat packaged food because they believe, for no discernible reason, they believe that their food's being poisoned. People that they're dying. And then you get other types of delusions, like grandiose delusions, where people believe they can read minds or have superpowers or can fly. And yeah.
So how many schizophrenics are of the paranoid type?
Good question. I think the majority of people with schizophrenia have paranoid schizophrenia. Yeah. So I think well over a half generally tend to be. That's how it presents. Yeah.
Over half are paranoid schizophrenics.
Yeah.
And out of all of the violent crime that occurs from the mentally ill, what proportion of that comes from paranoid schizophrenics? So
I should say, because I wouldn't want to add to the stigma against mental illness. So I would really sort of like to highlight that the vast majority of people who have mental illness are not violent.
Yeah.
It just happens to be that I work in the field that's exactly that overlap. So in terms of serious crimes like murder, I think quite a high proportion of them are done by people with schizophrenia. I think it's something like 10%.
10% of murders are done by schizophrenics.
I think so, yeah.
And what are the warning signs people could look for then, like just hearing people say strange things?
Well, the problem is that because the vast majority of people with mental illnesses like schizophrenia are not violent, it's one thing to identify the mental illness, but it's a whole different ballgame to actually identify the risks, which is where you need a specialist like a forensic psychiatrist. But to answer your question, so generally people with schizophrenia have those symptoms I was talking about. So they're hearing voices, or they're transfixed on ideas or thoughts or conspirational beliefs that are clearly not true. But they also tend to have quite significant cognitive decline. So you can be quite paranoid but not have schizophrenia. But somebody with schizophrenia, generally, there are exceptions, but generally they struggle with work, with relationships. They tend to need to go in and out of hospital. So their ability to function massively decreases, which is called social drift. So they tend to drift towards joblessness, homelessness, drug use. Yeah.
Have you watched the White House Farm Murders on Netflix?
No, I've heard of it.
So
but I know. What was the name of the
Jeremy
perpetrator?
Bamber.
Yeah, I know a little bit about him though. Yeah.
Oh, do you? What do you know about Bamber?
So the reason I know this is because I was a guest on another podcast about the murders, even though I've not seen any documentaries on it. So I know that he tried to set up his schizophrenic sister as committing these murders. So he murdered his entire family, I believe. And
he was convicted of it. Yeah,
right.
We're trying to research this more.
Okay.
There's a guy we're working with who believes he's innocent.
Okay, I've heard that there's a movement of people that believe that actually.
So we're trying to get to the bottom of it. It's tricky though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of things have you found out?
Not much yet, but we're going to be meeting with the team, and we're going to be doing some podcasts with the team that represent him. So we're hoping to find out a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, watching that show on Netflix, you could see how the women who provided the information that convicted him had a lot to gain.
Right.
The cousin, basically, everything he was going to inherit went to her.
Okay.
And his girlfriend had already sold a story to the News of the World for tens of thousands.
Right. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's a lot to it. Even though that show made him look guilty, from my experience in the justice system, there was a lot of red flags.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I wrote a book, Unmaking a Murderer, about the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases on Making a Murderer.
Yeah.
And there's 10 things that always reoccur when there's no physical evidence as to how they convict people.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of that reoccurring in his case. So definitely something we want to look at much stronger. Yeah.
Okay. Again, if you need any sound bites, I'll do my research.
Yeah.
I'll find out about his case.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. All right. So, is there a mental disorder then that is more prolific in murder than schizophrenia?
Yes. So personality disorder. Yeah.
Personality disorders.
Yeah. So this is often misunderstood. So there's a difference between a mental illness and a personality disorder. So a mental illness is, it can be seen as a baseline change of what you usually are because you've got symptoms. So if it's psychosis, then those symptoms are, as I said before, hearing voices, seeing things. If it's, for example, mania, then those symptoms are, being speeded up, having all this energy, flight of ideas. If it's something like depression, as I'm sure you know, low mood, lack of energy, etc. Whereas a personality disorder is entrenched in you. So if you've got a personality disorder, it means that your character traits are flawed by definition. So it's part of you. It's related to, your upbringing, your experiences, etc. So I should say I've made videos on personality disorders and I've got quite a bit of backlash because they are quite a contentious diagnosis. And some people who are diagnosed feel that they're labeled as troublemakers. And I can understand where that comes from because I've certainly seen in my career doctors and nurses who say that's just PD, that's just personality disorder, which I take to mean that they're just causing trouble for the sake of it. They know what they're doing. They're not hearing voices, for example. So I agree with that. It is a contentious diagnosis, but the definition of a personality disorder is that your personality traits are flawed. So when it comes to violence, by far the most common personality disorder is antisocial personality disorder. So people that have this disorder tend to not care about the rights of other people. They treat people with like this callous indifference. They don't care about them. They don't care about following the law. They don't really learn from their mistakes. So even if they get punished, even if they get sent to prison, they never really change. I'm sure through your experience in prison, you must have met a lot of people with this kind of disorder.
Would you say that they are also overlap with psychopaths?
Yes, absolutely. So psychopaths is like antisocial personality disorder plus. So you've got all of those traits plus turbocharged. Plus you're really charming and you're really manipulative.
Right.
And another difference is that people with antisocial personality disorder can have empathy towards some people. So you can go out in the streets, be a thug, be a drug dealer, beat people up, but you still love your mum, you still love your family.
Yeah.
Whereas a true psychopath, of which I've worked with a few, have no empathy for anybody. So they can still be in a marriage, they might have kids, but they deep down to their core, they only really care about themselves, and they only really see other people as an opportunity to manipulate, to get something from. So they might have friends, but they don't really value their friendship. So for example, I've seen psychopaths on wards. So I've worked in personality wards when I did my training, and I've seen a couple of psychopaths, and they would like a lot of wards, there was like alliances and cliques. I wouldn't call them gangs, but there were men that hung out together and had friendships. And a true psychopath would drop their friend like that if it suited them. So if a friend had provided a positive urine drug test, for example, and the psychopath doesn't want to lose his leave, he'll like disassociate himself with that. Or if a friend's been accused of doing something, then a true psychopath will just cut ties immediately, would have no qualms.
All right, so you mentioned then personality disorders. So does that mean like borderline personality disorder? Is that one of them?
Yeah. So
what does that even mean?
Okay, so when it comes to personality disorders that are related to violence and offending, as I said before, number one, by far the most common one I see is antisocial personality disorder.
Antisocial.
Number 2 is borderline.
Oh, is it?
So borderline is also known as emotionally unstable personality disorder. And people who suffer from this tend to have mood swings, big mood swings. They're never fully happy with themselves. They're never fully happy with their identity. So they often, change their circle of friends or change their image just because they're never really happy with who they are in the core. They often self-harm, and they often take drugs, and they have quite explosive relationships. So the difference between somebody antisocial who offends versus somebody with borderline who offends, in my experience, is that antisocial people see offending as a lifestyle. So violence is how they earn their living, basically. Whereas generally people with borderline tend to not want to be habitual offenders, but they can't contain their emotions. So they get into an argument with their boyfriends or their girlfriends or their parents, and they just explode in this rage and they regret it afterwards. Whereas somebody with antisocial personality, it's what they do. They regret getting caught, but they don't regret their behavior. But I should also say that there's a lot of people with borderline who live fulfilled lives and are able to contain their symptoms and their behaviors. I'm not saying that everybody with this disorder is aggressive or violent. It's just the people that I tend to see.
Who's more manipulative? Psychopaths, antisocial, borderline?
Psychopaths.
Psychopaths.
Yeah. Because by definition, you have to be manipulative to be a psychopath. Whereas you don't have to have that trait for the other two.
If you're looking for a gift, my new book, Sit Downs with Gangsters, is available worldwide on Amazon. We've interviewed over 1,000 people now, and we selected 10 of the hardest hitting stories to go in this book. Each chapter features the story of one of our podcast guests. Those stories are Shane Taylor, Knife Maniac's Redemption; John Elite, Mafia Hitman for the Gambino crime family; Joey Barnett, 35 years in UK prison; Ian Blink MacDonald, £6 million bank robber; Chet Sandu, Asian smuggler in Spanish Supermax; John Lawson, the hit team commander; David Macmillan, international smugglers Thai death row prison escape; John Abbott, San Quentin prison shootouts and escape; Michael Francis, Colombo crime family capo portrayed in Goodfellas; and Wildman, English enforcer in Arizona prison. Link in description box on YouTube, available worldwide on Amazon. Also, my next book, Untouchable Jimmy Savile, is getting published in December 2023. So check that out as well. It will be available worldwide on Amazon. Thank you for listening. Cheers.